Graham, this is the part that I am so excited about because as you can see, we have an array of bags. We're testing your knowledge right now.
Sure.
Are the brands forthcoming with information on how to authenticate their product?
No.
Great,
I mean,
that's
they don't
helpful.
authenticate. They don't educate their employees on authentication at a retail level. You know, that's not their job description. They're sales associates. Any authentication is going to be handled like at headquarters or at manufacturing level, or simply with civil enforcement for their IP. Their job isn't counterfeit detection.
Right. Okay, so I have no idea what is what. So I'm leaving it to you to tell me.
So you brought a broad spectrum of products.
I did.
Let's start with the literal red herring. I mean, okay, so this is what we would call like a canal street, a Santee Alley counterfeit. This is something that you probably bought off of a black tarp on the corner for $20, maybe less. The interior label is blank. It doesn't even say Gucci on it. The only thing that says Gucci is this stamp right here. So in essence, the person imported a blank bag and then they stamped it Gucci. They could have stamped it Prada. They could have stamped it Fendi. They could have stamped it anything they wanted. It's legal to import a bag with no branding on it. So they can bring it over. And then at the last minute before they sell it, that's when they can go and stamp it with the brand.
Okay then.
All right,
So fake.
We move from the very amateurish to something more complicated. This is an Hermes Bolide bag. It's a lot of history in this bag. I don't want to get all into details, but you know, something that retails for $5,000, they're going to put more money into a counterfeit. Although we always look for the finite. There's that one thing that's so definite that you can just say done and move on.
Right.
Let's turn it over. We see masking tape on the feet. If someone paid $5,000 for it, they're not going to go and put masking tape on the bottom of the feet.
Right.
Maybe. There's a very slim chance that they might do it, but of course we can look farther. This right here is the biggest red flag. If I was on any website looking at a handbag and I saw masking tape on the feet, I would stay away. I wouldn't even dig deeper. But if we look at the tone of the hardware, it's incorrect. It has too much of a blue shine. It doesn't ring as palladium. And then we take out the strap, and it's wrapped in plastic with some cardboard. This is not luxury. This is not Hermes standards. Whenever you see items wrapped in plastic, it should be a really big red flag. Not to say that some mass brands don't do that, but it's normally removed before the item is sold to the consumer. So that brings us over.
So I'm going to call this one as being a fake.
You're absolutely correct. This is a rock stud bag. It has some butterfly embroidery, all this stud work. And they went through all of this effort to make something that's convincing. And then again, they put the plastic on it. So the devil's in the details. We appreciate when people leave this stuff intact because it helps us authenticate the piece.
Sure.
If it was not there, we could still tell that the item was counterfeit. It came with a swatch and a hang tag, and there's even Chinese characters on there. We know a bag that's made in Italy, it might have, a garment might have Chinese lettering on the care instructions if it's being sold to that market, Japanese if it's being sold in Japan. So that shouldn't always be a red flag, but on a QC, a quality control sticker like that, it would be in Italian and probably English. Additionally, we see this printing in here on the interior label. It's really crude and rough, and it's actually just been glued on. It hasn't been stitched down. So an obvious presence of glue at a label is, again, a red flag.
Okay.
Our table is getting lighter.
It is.
Down to the little kids. Where do you want to go next?
Let's go right down the middle.
All right, so we have a Gucci clutch from circa 2006. Unlike the red bag, this one does say Gucci, and it does say made in Italy on the interior label. If we turn the label over, we see that there's a 6-digit style number. That will correlate to this style, and then there's a art or lot number underneath it. This is correct formatting for Gucci's serialization. Even going down to the font, looking at that 2 under a loop or a magnifying glass will show you that it's the correct font with the correct serifs. It's the correct size, it's the correct weight. So it doubles in the details there. We turn the zipper pull over, it says Gucci on the mechanism. We look at the little rivets, they say Gucci there. Everything is branded correctly. These buckles are proprietary. This is Romy Hardware, R-O-M-Y. It was a collection that was done in 2005, 2006. It's not just a buckle that they went to a shop and bought. This was designed specifically for this collection. So the details are there to show that this is a quality piece, Gucci again on the back of the snaps. Functioning pockets, well lined, well manufactured. That now is 12, gosh, do the math, 13 years old.
I can't.
And even because it's metallic, you do have a little bit of wear, but it's something that still has life left in it
Yes.
because it's well made. All right, Chanel. This is a Chanel boy bag. And the first thing we're gonna look at is the material in the front. To make a counterfeit, you have to make it, the point of making a counterfeit is to make it cheap so you can make money, right?
Right.
You wouldn't use genuine lizard skin, which this is, on a counterfeit. It would be cost prohibitive.
Okay.
So by being able to identify genuine skins.
How do you tell if it's genuine?
Sure, especially when you have a small piece like this, that can be more difficult. Embossed leather is going to have a repeat every so far, so you can see these repetitions where you don't have in nature. We see this alignment. The center seam is the center of the belly.
Okay.
And we have these flat rectangular scales on the middle section, and then they move over to round scales, which should be on the side of the animal. We know it's genuine because, like our skin with freckles and moles, there are slight irregularities.
Okay.
Which on a embossed piece, you're not going to see that.
Sure.
Also, we know Chanel uses genuine skins up until 2019 when they stopped using exotics. But then we'll go further for confirmation. We see the screws on the back of this push lock are 6-sided stars. That's a good sign. We look at the Chanel logo on the side here, and again, under a loop of magnification, we can see the edges are all extremely crisp at firm 90-degree angles. Counterfeits will often have rounded edges. Lastly, we're going to dig into the bag and pull out the lining. And on a counterfeit, unfortunately, I have ripped the linings before.
Oh, really?
Because they're very poorly made. But on a genuine bag, you should be able to pull out this corner with no problem. And you can see a serialization. Since 1986, Chanel has been adding serial numbers to their leather goods.
Okay.
Each one is unique. And based off that, because they started with 0000001 and have come all the way up, this is 26. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can place the date of this piece at approximately off the top of my head, because I didn't research this earlier, 2018.
Wow.
So, other than that, it's made from calfskin. It has a really beautiful hand to it. The hardware has great weight, and it matches. Every single component is all exactly the same hue of this nice pink gold, which complements the black so nicely.
Okay, so we have 2 that are real, and just very quickly.
This is the Yves Saint Laurent Belle de Jour clutch. What some people might think is counterfeit, because the front logo is YSL, and on the interior it says Saint Laurent Paris, SLP, the rebranding. So you would think like, oh, that's 2 different time frames.
Right.
Well, about a year and a half after they got rid of the Yves, they brought it back because it's so iconic. So that's actually okay. On this bag, we're going to have a hard time seeing it on camera, but there is a style number, like on the Gucci, because they're part of Kering, the same parent company, that has the same formatting. So we can look at that 6-digit number, and if we even go to the Saint Laurent website, because this style is still in production, you can confirm that style number there. Now, that's not to say that you won't find counterfeits that do have style numbers, but often they make them too large, too obvious to fool the consumer. So on the table here, we have 3 genuine goods ranging from very, very current to vintage, and then kind of right in between. And pieces that all really retain their value on the secondary market because they're very high quality and they're iconic of the brands. Fired.
I was like, I just have one last question. Okay, so we've got 3 that are real.
Yep.
Okay. What is the education process that staff at The Real go through to be able to authenticate the stock that's coming through?
Sure. So for someone who gain their knowledge in a very roundabout kind of way, where we try to streamline authentication as much as possible. And the skills of a good authenticator is knowing the materials, the construction of the good, the hardware components that are used, what's accurate and what's not accurate for the brand, and then those brand-specific identifiers like we talked about already.
Right.
So when you train someone in authentication, you're going to specialize in certain brands first. Maybe you start with Chanel, then move on to Gucci and YSL, or you'll start with a different product category. So maybe you start just with handbags. And when you've mastered handbags, which, gosh, that would sure take a long time, but then you move on to other product categories like ready to wear, or shoes, or different accessories. And then you try to find commonalities. Standards of fabrication and construction that you would expect from luxury level brands, and where those differ. So let's say Burberry Porcelain, which is made in Italy, is going to have a very different quality standard than Burberry Brit, which is made in China or Turkey. So really educating the authenticator of those differences within the brands at the different tiers and levels, so that while you're not being lackadaisical in any means, you're not being overtly cautious and turning down product. It's all about a full 360 knowledge of the brand and the products that they produce.
And I'm assuming that just volume that they are handling plays a big part in their knowledge.
Nothing trains you like experience and practice. The more repetitions at the gym, the stronger your muscles get, right? And your authentication muscles are not just your eyes, but your hands, your nose even. And you use all your senses to authenticate. So yeah, the more you see, the more you have a sense, a tactile sense of comparison to, the easier it is to differentiate a counterfeit.
Graham, thank you so much. I've had so much fun with all of this, and the knowledge that you have shared, mind-blowing.
It's been a treat, Natalie.
I'm Natalie Sady, and this is Sady Says.